I'm 27 and I can't remember the last time I slept through the night. Insomnia, night terrors, sleepwalking, you name it, I've dealt with it. The doctors say it's due to unresolved trauma, but no amount of medication seems to help. Every day is a struggle, a constant battle against the exhaustion that weighs me down. I snap at my friends, my work suffers, and I feel like I'm barely holding it together. I've tried everything: therapy, meditation, even hypnosis. But nothing seems to quiet the demons that haunt me when I close my eyes. It's a living nightmare, one that I can't seem to escape. And some days I wonder if I'll ever know what it's like to feel rested, to wake up without that familiar sense of dread and fatigue. But I keep pushing forward, keep hoping that someday, somehow, I'll find a way to break free from this cycle of sleepless nights and waking horrors. Until then, I'll just have to keep surviving, one day at a time. It was during one of my brief respites, a fleeting window of relief granted by a new experimental medication, that I first met Jeff. He was a doctor, a few years older than me, with a kind face and a no-nonsense demeanor. We struck up a conversation at a coffee shop, bonding over our shared love of science fiction novels. Jeff was different from anyone I'd ever met. He had a way of cutting through the bullshit, of getting straight to the heart of the matter. When I told him about my struggles with sleep, he didn't offer platitudes or empty sympathy. He just listened, his brow furrowed in concentration, as if he were solving a particularly challenging puzzle. To my surprise, we hit it off immediately. Jeff had a wicked sense of humor, a sharp wit that could cut through even my darkest moods. We started hanging out more and more, grabbing drinks after work, binging old sci-fi movies on weekends. I'd never had a friend like Jeff before. Someone who understood me, who accepted me without judgment. As a straight guy, I'd always been wary of getting too close to other men, afraid of sending the wrong message. But with Jeff, those fears melted away. He was just so damn easy to be around. When my living situation fell apart, Jeff didn't hesitate. "Move in with me," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I've got a spare room, and I could use the company." I was stunned by his generosity, by the ease with which he welcomed me into his life. But I was also grateful. With Jeff, I felt like I had a safe haven, a place where I could let my guard down and just be myself. Living with Jeff was a revelation. We fell into an easy rhythm, cooking meals together, arguing good-naturedly over the merits of various sci-fi franchises. For the first time in years, I found myself looking forward to coming home, to the warmth and comfort of Jeff's presence. But even as my friendship with Jeff blossomed, my sleep issues persisted. The new medication had stopped working, and I was back to square one, tossing and turning through the long, lonely nights. I tried to hide it from Jeff, not wanting to burden him with my problems. But he knew. He could see the exhaustion etched into my face, the dark circles under my eyes, and in true Jeff fashion, he refused to let me suffer in silence. "We'll figure this out," he told me, his hand resting reassuringly on my shoulder. "Together. You're not alone in this, not anymore." I felt a lump form in my throat, a surge of gratitude and affection for this man who had become such an integral part of my life. With Jeff by my side, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could face the demons that haunted me, like I didn't have to fight this battle alone. It was a glimmer of hope in the darkness, a flicker of light in the unending night. And I clung to it like a drowning man, desperate for any lifeline in the storm of my own mind. It was a night like any other, or so I thought. I'd gone to bed early, hoping against hope that this would be the night I'd finally get some rest. But as soon as I closed my eyes, the familiar terror began to creep in, the shadows in my mind twisting into grotesque shapes. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment I was lying in bed, my heart pounding, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The next I was standing in Jeff's room, my fists clenched, my body drenched in sweat. I looked around wildly, disoriented and confused. What was I doing here? How had I gotten from my bed to Jeff's room? But before I could make sense of it, the panic overtook me again, a tidal wave of fear and despair. "They're coming," I heard myself saying, my voice a hoarse whisper. "They're coming for me, Jeff. I have to hide. I have to get away." I was dimly aware of Jeff sitting up in bed, his eyes widening in alarm. But I couldn't focus on him, couldn't see anything beyond the visions that danced before my eyes, the shadowy figures that reached out to grab me. I stumbled forward, my hands groping blindly for something, anything to defend myself with. But before I could find a weapon, I felt strong arms wrap around me from behind, holding me tight. "It's okay," Jeff murmured, his voice soft and soothing in my ear. "You're safe. I've got you. Nothing's going to hurt you, I promise." I struggled against his grip, my mind still lost in the nightmare. But Jeff held firm, his embrace a steady anchor in the storm of my terror. Slowly, gradually, the visions began to fade, the shadows receding back into the corners of my mind. I blinked, my eyes adjusting to the dim light of Jeff's room, the reality of my surroundings sinking in. "Jeff," I croaked, my voice trembling. "What? What happened? What am I doing here?" "You were sleepwalking," Jeff said gently, his arms still wrapped around me. "You came into my room talking about someone coming for you. You seemed really scared." I felt a hot rush of shame, my cheeks burning in the darkness. How could I have let Jeff see me like this, so vulnerable and exposed? I was supposed to be stronger than this, able to handle my own problems. But as I opened my mouth to apologize, to make some excuse and flee back to my own room, Jeff spoke again. "It's okay," he said, as if reading my mind. "You don't have to be embarrassed. I'm just glad I was here to help." I felt something crack open inside me, a dam bursting under the weight of too much pressure. Before I knew it, I was crying, great heaving sobs that shook my entire body. And through it all, Jeff held me, his presence a steady comfort in the darkness. He didn't try to shush me or tell me to be quiet. He just let me cry, his hand rubbing soothing circles on my back. When at last my tears subsided, I felt emptied out, hollowed and raw. But I also felt a strange sense of peace, a calm that I hadn't known in years. Jeff eased me down onto his bed, pulling the covers up around us. "Sleep," he whispered, his arm still draped across my chest. "I'll be right here. You're safe now." And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I did. With Jeff's warmth pressed against me, his steady breathing a lullaby in my ear, I drifted off into a deep, dreamless sleep. It was a turning point, a moment that would change everything. Because in the safety of Jeff's arms, I had found something I hadn't even known I was looking for. I had found home. I awoke the next morning feeling disoriented, my mind foggy with the remnants of sleep. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was, why I wasn't in my own bed. But then it all came rushing back, the night terror, the sleepwalking, Jeff's comforting embrace. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. Jeff was already awake, sitting beside me with a worried expression on his face. "Hey," he said softly, "how are you feeling?" I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. How could I possibly explain the maelstrom of emotions swirling inside me? The shame, the gratitude, the overwhelming sense of relief. But as I looked into Jeff's eyes, I saw nothing but understanding. He didn't need me to explain. He already knew. "I'm sorry," I managed at last, my voice hoarse. "For last night, for waking you up, for ... for everything." Jeff shook his head, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "You don't have to apologize," he said. "I'm just glad I could be there for you." I felt a lump forming in my throat, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. I couldn't remember the last time someone had said those words to me and actually meant them. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Jeff reached out and took my hand, his fingers warm and strong against mine. "You're not alone in this," he said. "I'm here for you, no matter what." I felt something shift inside me, a knot of tension unraveling in my chest. For so long, I had been fighting this battle on my own, convinced that I had to be strong, that asking for help was a sign of weakness. But here, in the safety of Jeff's presence, I realized how foolish that had been. I didn't have to be strong all the time. I didn't have to face my demons alone. "Last night," I said hesitantly, "when you held me, when you stayed with me ... was the first time in years that I've slept without nightmares." Jeff's eyes widened, a look of surprise and wonder crossing his face. "Really?" he asked. I nodded, feeling a flush of embarrassment creeping up my neck. I don't know why, I admitted, but something about having you there, knowing I wasn't alone ... made me feel safe. Jeff was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing idle patterns on the back of my hand. When he spoke again, his voice was soft, almost hesitant. What if ... What if we made this a regular thing, he asked. You sleeping here with me, I mean. If it helps with your nightmares, if it makes you feel safe ... I want to do that for you. I stared at him, my mouth falling open in shock. Was he seriously suggesting what I thought he was suggesting? But as I searched his face, I saw nothing but sincerity, a genuine desire to help. And I realized that the idea of sleeping beside Jeff every night, of having his steady presence to anchor me through the darkness ... didn't scare me. It felt right. Are you sure? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. I don't want to impose or make things weird between us. Jeff squeezed my hand, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that took my breath away. You could never impose, he said firmly. And as for weird ... who cares? If it helps you, if it makes your life even a little bit easier ... then it's worth it. I felt tears welling up in my eyes again, a surge of gratitude and affection for this incredible man. Okay, I whispered. Let's do it. Jeff's smile was blinding, a ray of pure sunshine cutting through the gloom. Great, he said, but on one condition ... you have to promise to start seeing a therapist. I want to help you, but I'm not equipped to deal with this on my own. You need professional help too. I hesitated, feeling a familiar twinge of resistance. Therapy had never worked for me before. What made Jeff think it would be any different now? But as I looked into his eyes, saw the depth of his concern and care, I knew I couldn't refuse him. If Jeff thought therapy could help, then I owed it to him and to myself to give it a try. Okay, I agreed, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll do it. For you ... and for me. Jeff's smile softened, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. I'm proud of you, he murmured. I know this isn't easy, but you're not doing it alone. I'll be with you every step of the way. And as I leaned into his touch, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine, I knew that he meant it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't facing my demons alone. I had Jeff. And that made all the difference in the world. The first night of our new sleeping arrangement was awkward, to say the least. As I lay in Jeff's bed, feeling the warmth of his body beside me, I couldn't help but wonder what the hell I was doing. Was this crossing a line? Was I taking advantage of Jeff's kindness? But as the night wore on, as I drifted off into a deep, dreamless sleep, those doubts began to fade away. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't plagued by nightmares. I didn't wake up screaming, drenched in sweat and trembling with fear. Instead, I woke up feeling rested, refreshed, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And when I looked over at Jeff, saw the smile on his face as he blinked awake, I knew that this was right. This was where I was meant to be. Over the next few weeks, Jeff and I fell into a comfortable routine. We would go about our days as normal work, errands, the usual grind. But at night, we would come together in Jeff's bed, our bodies curled around each other like parentheses. It wasn't sexual. At least not at first. We were just two friends, taking comfort in each other's presence. Jeff never pushed for more, never made me feel uncomfortable or pressured. He was just there, a steady rock in the midst of my turbulent sea. But as the nights went on, as I grew more and more accustomed to the feel of Jeff's body against mine, I started to notice things. The way his hair fell across his forehead as he slept. The curve of his lips parted slightly in slumber. The play of muscles beneath his sleep shirt as he shifted and stretched. I tried to push those thoughts away, to remind myself that Jeff was just a friend, that I was straight, that this was all just a temporary arrangement. But the more I tried to ignore them, the louder they became, a constant hum in the back of my mind. One night, as we lay tangled together beneath the sheets, Jeff's arm draped across my waist, I felt something shift inside me. A flicker of heat, a spark of desire that I couldn't quite name. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. What was happening to me? Why was I suddenly feeling this way about my best friend, about another man? But before I could spiral too far down that rabbit hole, Jeff stirred beside me, his eyes fluttering open. You okay? He murmured, his voice rough with sleep. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet his gaze. Yeah, I lied. Just ... just thinking. Jeff's brow furrowed, his hand coming up to brush a stray lock of hair from my forehead. About what he asked softly. I shook my head, unable to put my thoughts into words. How could I tell him what I was feeling when I barely understood it myself? But Jeff, as always, seemed to sense my inner turmoil. He pulled me closer, his arm tightening around my waist. "It's okay," he whispered. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. I'm here for you." I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, a sudden rush of emotion that I couldn't quite contain. I know I managed, my voice cracking. I don't know what's happening to me, Jeff. I'm feeling things that I've never felt before, and it's confusing and scary and I don't know what to do. Jeff was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing idle patterns on my hip. When he spoke again, his voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Is it about us?" he asked. "About this? About sleeping together?" I nodded, feeling a flush of shame creeping up my neck. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I know this is supposed to be platonic, that we're just friends. But lately I've been feeling feeling things that I shouldn't be feeling." Jeff let out a long, slow breath, his hand stilling on my hip. "What kind of things?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I squeezed my eyes shut, unable to look at him as I forced the words out. "Attraction," I admitted. "Desire. Like like I want to be with you in a way that's more than just friends." There. I'd said it. The truth was out there, hanging in the air between us like a live wire. I braced myself for Jeff's reaction, for the disgust, the rejection, the inevitable end of our friendship. But instead, I felt Jeff's hand on my cheek, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. And when I finally found the courage to open my eyes, I saw something I never expected to see. Understanding. Acceptance. And maybe, just maybe, a flicker of desire that mirrored my own. "Oh, love," Jeff murmured, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to hear you say those words." And then, before I could even begin to process what was happening, Jeff's lips were on mine, soft and warm and perfect. And as I melted into his kiss, felt the heat of his body pressed against mine, I knew that everything had changed. This was more than just a new sleeping arrangement. This was the start of something new, something beautiful and terrifying and utterly unexpected. This was the start of us. As much as I wanted to lose myself in the newfound joy of my growing relationship with Jeff, I knew I couldn't ignore the other promise I had made, the promise to start therapy, to finally confront the demons that had haunted me for so long. It wasn't easy. Just the thought of sitting in a therapist's office, spilling my darkest secrets to a stranger, was enough to make my palms sweat and my heart race. But every time I wavered, every time I thought about backing out, Jeff was there, holding my hand, reminding me that I wasn't alone. "You've got this," he would whisper, pressing a soft kiss to my temple. "I believe in you, and I'll be here, no matter what." So I went. I sat in that overstuffed armchair, my hands clenched in my lap, and I talked. I talked about my childhood, about the trauma that I had buried so deep I had almost convinced myself it wasn't real. I talked about the nightmares, the sleepwalking, the constant gnawing fear that I would never be whole. At first, it was like pulling teeth. Every word felt like a struggle, like I was dragging each syllable out of some dark, hidden place inside me. I would leave each session feeling raw and exposed, like I had been flayed open and left to bleed. But slowly, gradually, it started to get easier. With each passing week, I found myself opening up more, sharing things I had never told anyone before. And my therapist, a kind-eyed woman with a gentle voice, listened. She didn't judge, didn't try to fix me or tell me what to do. She just held space for me, allowing me to be seen and heard in a way I had never experienced before. And through it all, Jeff was my anchor. He was the one I turned to after each session, the one who held me as I cried, who listened as I tried to make sense of the emotions that therapy had stirred up. He was patient, understanding, never pushing me to share more than I was ready for. But there were moments, quiet moments in the dark of night, when I found myself wanting to share more. Moments when I looked into Jeff's eyes and saw a depth of love and compassion that took my breath away. Moments when I knew, with a certainty that scared me, that I could trust this man with anything, with everything. It was during one of these moments, curled up in Jeff's arms after a particularly intense therapy session, that I finally found the courage to tell him the truth about my past. The truth about the abuse I had suffered at the hands of someone I had trusted, someone who was supposed to protect me. I felt Jeff go still beside me, felt his arms tighten around me as I spoke. But he didn't interrupt, didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes or empty reassurances. He just listened, his heart breaking with every word. When I finished, when the last terrible secret had been spoken into the darkness, Jeff held me as I wept. He stroked my hair, murmuring words of love and comfort, telling me over and over again that it wasn't my fault, that I was brave and strong and worthy of love. And in that moment, I believed him. For the first time in my life, I looked at myself through Jeff's eyes not as a broken, damaged thing, but as a survivor, someone who had endured unspeakable pain and come out the other side. It was a turning point, both in my therapy and in my relationship with Jeff. With each passing day, I felt lighter, freer, like the weight of my past was slowly being lifted from my shoulders. And with each moment of vulnerability, each whispered confession in the dark, I felt my bond with Jeff growing deeper, more unshakable. Therapy wasn't a magic cure. It didn't erase the scars of my past or banish the nightmares entirely. But it gave me tools, strategies for coping with the darkness when it threatened to overwhelm me. And it gave me the strength to keep going, to keep fighting for the life I wanted, the love I deserved. And through it all, Jeff was by my side, my partner, my safe haven in the storm. With him, I knew I could face anything, overcome anything, because together we were stronger than any demon, any nightmare, any ghost from the past. Together we were invincible. As the weeks turned into months, my relationship with Jeff blossomed into something I had never experienced before. It was more than just the physical intimacy, though that was certainly a part of it. It was the emotional connection, the sense of being truly seen and understood by another person. We spent hours talking, sharing our hopes and dreams, our fears and insecurities. We cooked meals together, laughing and joking in the kitchen as we chopped vegetables and stirred pots. We explored the city, trying new restaurants and wandering through museums, our hands clasped tightly together. And at night, in the safety of our bed, we explored each other's bodies, learning every curve and plane, every sensitive spot and hidden pleasure. Jeff was a tender, attentive lover, always putting my needs before his own. He worshipped my body with his hands and mouth, making me feel cherished, desired, utterly adored. But it was the quiet moments, the stolen glances and soft touches that really made my heart soar. The way Jeff's eyes would light up when I entered a room, the way his hand would find mine under the table at a crowded restaurant. The way he would pull me close in the middle of the night, his breath warm against my ear as he whispered sleepy words of love. I had never known a love like this before, a love that was equal parts passion and tenderness, desire and devotion, a love that made me feel safe, cherished, completely at home in my own skin. But even as I reveled in the joy of our deepening relationship, I couldn't shake the nagging sense of unease that lurked in the back of my mind. The sense that this was all too good to be true, that at any moment, the rug would be pulled out from under me and I would be left alone and adrift once again. It was a fear born of a lifetime of trauma, of never feeling truly secure or worthy of love. And try as I might to push it away, to focus on the happiness that Jeff and I had found together, it always seemed to find its way back in, seeping into the cracks of my newfound contentment. One night, as we lay tangled together in the afterglow of lovemaking, I found myself voicing those fears aloud. "Sometimes I'm afraid this is all a dream," I whispered, my face buried in the crook of Jeff's neck. "That I'm going to wake up one day and find out that none of this was real, that you never really loved me at all." Jeff went still beside me, his hand coming up to stroke my hair. "Oh, love," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "This is real. What we have, what we've built together, ... It's the most real thing I've ever known." He pulled back slightly, tilting my chin up so he could look into my eyes. "I love you," he said, his gaze steady and sure. "I love you with every fiber of my being, with every beat of my heart. And nothing, not your past, not your fears, not anything in this world or the next, will ever change that." I felt tears welling up in my eyes, a sudden rush of emotion that I couldn't quite contain. "I love you too," I whispered, my voice cracking, "more than I ever thought possible." Jeff smiled, his thumb brushing away the tears that had begun to slide down my cheeks. "Then that's all that matters," he said softly. "The rest we can figure out together. One day at a time, one moment at a time. As long as we have each other, we can face anything." And as I looked into Jeff's eyes, saw the depth of love and commitment shining there, I knew he was right. The fears, the doubts, the ghosts of my past, they were still there, still a part of me. But they didn't have the power to destroy me, not anymore. Because I had Jeff. I had his love, his strength, his unwavering belief in me. And with him by my side, I knew I could overcome anything, heal from anything, build the life I had always dreamed of. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be setbacks and challenges, moments of fear and doubt and pain. But as long as we had each other, as long as we held fast to the love that had brought us together, we would be okay. More than okay, we would be extraordinary. And so, with a heart full of love and a soul bursting with hope, I let myself sink into Jeff's embrace, let myself believe in the beautiful, unbreakable bond we had forged. Let myself believe in us, in the love that would carry us through anything, everything, forever. It had been a long day, one of those days where the weight of the past seemed to press down on me from all sides. A difficult therapy session had left me raw and exposed, old wounds ripped open anew. By the time I got home, all I wanted was to crawl into bed and shut out the world. But Jeff, as always, seemed to sense my distress. He took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms, holding me close as I buried my face in his chest. "Rough day," he murmured, his hands rubbing soothing circles on my back. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. But as we stood there, Jeff's heartbeat steady and solid against my cheek, I felt something inside me crack open. A dam bursting, a floodgate releasing. "I need to tell you something," I whispered, my voice muffled against his shirt. "Something about my past, about why I am the way I am." Jeff led me to the couch, his hand never leaving mine. As we settled onto the cushions, he turned to face me, his eyes soft and patient. "I'm listening," he said gently. "Take your time." And so, haltingly, hesitantly, I began to speak. I told him about the abuse I had suffered as a child, about the way it had shattered my sense of safety and self-worth. I told him about the nightmares that still haunted me, the flashbacks that could bring me to my knees. As I spoke, I felt the old familiar shame and fear rising up in my throat, threatening to choke off my words. But Jeff's hand in mine, his steady gaze holding mine, gave me the strength to keep going. And when at last I fell silent, my voice hoarse and my cheeks wet with tears, Jeff gathered me into his arms once more. "I'm so sorry," he whispered fiercely. "I'm so sorry that happened to you, but I need you to know it wasn't your fault. You did nothing to deserve that. And you were so much more than what was done to you." I clung to him, my body shaking with the force of my sobs, but for the first time, they were not tears of pain or despair. They were tears of relief, of catharsis, of a burden finally shared and understood. Jeff held me through it all, his lips pressed to my hair, his love a tangible force in the air between us. And when at last my tears subsided, he drew back slightly, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. "Thank you for trusting me with this," he said softly. "I know how hard that must have been, but I need you to know this doesn't change how I feel about you. If anything, it makes me love you even more. Because I see how strong you are, how brave. I see the fighter in you, the survivor." I looked up at him, my heart swelling with a love so fierce it took my breath away. And in that moment, I knew with a bone-deep certainty that this was it. This was the man I wanted to spend my life with, the one I wanted by my side through every trial and triumph. Slowly, hesitantly, I leaned forward, my lips finding his in a kiss that was soft and sweet and filled with promise. Jeff's arms tightened around me, his mouth moving gently against mine, and I felt something slide into place inside my chest. A missing piece. A puzzle finally complete. We stayed like that for a long time, trading soft kisses and whispered words of love. And as the evening shadows lengthened and the world outside faded away, I knew that everything had changed. I had found my safe harbor, my place of rest. And with Jeff by my side, I knew I could weather any storm, face any demon. Because together we were stronger than anything life could throw at us. Together we were home. In the days and weeks that followed my emotional breakthrough with Jeff, I felt like a new person. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, a burden I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. With Jeff's love and support, I was finally starting to make peace with my past, to believe that I was worthy of happiness and love. But as our relationship deepened, as the initial rush of passion and excitement settled into something more steady and familiar, I found myself grappling with a new set of emotions, emotions that I had never expected to feel, least of all for another man. Growing up, I had always assumed I was straight. I had dated girls, had even thought myself in love once or twice. But looking back, those relationships had always felt like something was missing, like I was going through the motions without ever really connecting on a deeper level. With Jeff, it was different. The way my heart raced when he walked into a room, the way my skin tingled at his slightest touch, it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. And the more time I spent with him, the more I realized that what I felt for him went beyond mere friendship or physical attraction. I was falling in love with Jeff, and that realization terrified me. It wasn't that I was ashamed of my feelings, or that I thought there was anything wrong with being gay or bisexual. But after a lifetime of identifying as straight, of never even considering the possibility that I might be attracted to men, it was a lot to wrap my head around. I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about myself, about love and relationships and identity. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling as Jeff slept peacefully beside me, wondering what this meant for my future, for the person I had always believed myself to be. But through it all, Jeff was my rock. He never pushed me to define my sexuality or put a label on what we had. He just held me close and listened as I poured out my fears and doubts, his love and understanding a constant reassurance. "It's okay to be confused," he would tell me, his fingers carting gently through my hair. "There's no right or wrong way to feel. All that matters is that we love each other, that we're honest with each other." And slowly, day by day, I started to believe him. I started to let go of the preconceived notions I had about myself, about what a relationship was supposed to look like. I started to embrace the fact that my heart had chosen Jeff, and that choice was something to be celebrated, not feared. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt and insecurity, times when the old fears and shame would rear their ugly heads. But every time, Jeff was there to remind me of what was real, of the love and connection we shared. And as I let myself sink into that love, as I allowed myself to be truly seen and accepted for who I was, I felt a sense of peace and rightness that I had never known before. It was like coming home to myself, to a truth that had always been there, waiting for me to acknowledge it. I remember the moment it fully hit me, the moment I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that what Jeff and I had was the real deal. We were lying in bed, our limbs tangled together, basking in the afterglow of lovemaking. Jeff was tracing idle patterns on my chest, his touch feather light and tender. "I love you," he murmured, pressing a kiss to my collarbone. "I love every part of you, every flaw and imperfection and hidden strength. I love the man you are and the man you're becoming." And as I looked into his eyes, saw the depth of love and devotion shining there, I felt something settle deep in my soul. A sense of belonging, of rightness, of finally being exactly where I was meant to be. "I love you too," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. More than I ever thought possible. And as Jeff pulled me close, as our bodies melted together in a kiss that felt like a promise, like a vow, I knew that I had found my forever, my home, my heart, my truth. And nothing, not the ghosts of my past or the doubts of the present, could ever take that away from me. The restaurant was bustling with activity, the clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation filling the air. But as I sat across from Jeff, gazing into his eyes over the flickering candlelight, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. It had been 6 months since that fateful night when I had bared my soul to him. 6 months of laughter and tears, of healing and growth and love. And with each passing day, I had fallen more deeply, more irrevocably, in love with the man who had become my rock, my safe haven, my home. As we lingered over dessert, Jeff reached across the table and took my hand in his. "I have something I want to say to you," he murmured, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. I felt my heart skip a beat, a flutter of anticipation in my chest. "What is it?" I asked softly. Jeff took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. "When I first met you," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I knew there was something special about you. something brave and resilient and beautiful, even if you couldn't see it yourself. I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, my throat tightening with the force of my feelings. And as I got to know you, Jeff continued, as I watched you face your fears and conquer your demons, I fell more and more in love with you, with your strength, your courage, your endless capacity for love and forgiveness. A single tear escaped, trickling down my cheek, but I made no move to brush it away. I was too focused on Jeff, on the incredible man who had changed my life in ways I had never thought possible. I know it hasn't been easy, Jeff said softly. I know there have been times when you've doubted yourself, doubted us, but I need you to know that my love for you has never wavered, not for a single moment. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, and my heart nearly stopped. With shaking hands, he opened it to reveal a simple silver band, gleaming in the candlelight. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Jeff said, his voice trembling with emotion. I want to be there for every triumph and every setback, every joy and every sorrow. I want to grow old with you, to build a life and a family and a future together. He took a deep breath, his eyes shining with tears. Will you marry me? For a moment, I couldn't speak. I could only stare at the ring, at the man who held my heart in his hands, as a wave of emotion crashed over me. And then, with a sob of joy and relief and love, I flung myself into his arms. Yes, I whispered, my face buried in his neck. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Jeff held me close, his own tears mingling with mine as he slipped the ring onto my finger. And as we clung to each other, lost in our own little world of love and promise, I felt a sense of peace and rightness settle over me. This was where I belonged. This was the life I had always dreamed of, the love I had always longed for. And with Jeff by my side, I knew that anything was possible. We had come so far, overcome so much. The trauma of my past, the doubts and fears that had once seemed insurmountable. They were still a part of me, still something I would carry with me always. But they no longer defined me, no longer held me back from the happiness I deserved. As we left the restaurant hand in hand, the cool night air brushing against our faces, I felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future. A future filled with love and laughter, with healing and growth and endless possibility. A future with Jeff, my partner, my soulmate, my forever love. And as we walked off into the night, ready to face whatever challenges and joys lay ahead, I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Home at last.